So we have the person class, the clinic management system. The person class contains the following attributes of name, address, and contact. It also has a constructor that passes a name, the address, and the contact, and will set it to the private field of the person class. It also has the getters for the name, getters for the address, and the contact. Next, we have the client class, which inherits the person class. The client will inherit all of the attributes and methods of the person class, and then the client have a unique client ID, and the constructor. Inside the constructor, it will call the parent class, which is person, and it will set the client attribute. It also has the client ID getter. Next is we have the dentist class, which similar to client, it will inherit from the person class. Inside the dentist, we have a employee ID, the commission rate or double, and we also have an RA list for the list of services. We have a constructor that also calls for the parent class that set the employee ID, the commission, and creates an RA list for the services. The dentist has a method called add service. Then it accepts parameters, the name of the service itself. But before adding that service, it will first check the services if it already exists. Inside the if condition, there is a services that contains then the service itself with a negation. Part of the code returns true. It will negate, so it will false. Then the if condition will not work. However, if that certain service is not in the service list, it will become false. Then negate it, it will become true. Then it will go into the if condition. Then it will add that service to the services array list. Next one is can perform. This is basically this checks if the current service is inside the array list of the services of a dentist. Basically, if that service is present on the array list of the dentist, it will return true. Then we have the appropriate setters and getters of the class. Next, we have the transaction and transaction item class. This will handle all of the transaction of the client and the dentist. First, we have some of the classification of a transaction, the types of services, the quantity, and the prices. So, service types. There are 4 services that a dentist is able to do. So we have the filling, cleaning, whitening, and extraction. Along with that, the same index for filling will be 1,000, or the price of the filling is 1,000. That's why it is in a array form data type. So cleaning will be 600, whitening will become 500, and extraction will become 700. Then is per tooth. If the user selects filling, it will check if the is per tooth equals true. This is because for cleaning it will be the whole amount, so only 1 times. However, for filling and extraction, it will be per tooth. So depends if the user selects multiple tooth, it will multiply it to the price. For example, if the user picks fillings and the number of tooth will be 2, it will then multiply it to the service prices. Next, we have the private attributes of the transaction class, the transaction ID, the client, and the items of the transaction. It will have a constructor containing the transaction ID and the client. Then it has a method to calculate the price. As said earlier, if we get the filling service, it will ask for a quantity since that service is per tooth transaction. So basically, if that service is equals to filling, it will ask for the service and how many tooth or the quantity of the tooth to be serviced. So it will have a for loop, then it will go for the finding that service. If it is exists in the service types, then it will return. First we have a shortened if else. If this is true, then it will go to the service prices, then times the quantity of the ternary operator. If it's false, it will return the price instead without multiplying it with the quantity. Else, if the service doesn't exist, it will just return 0. Then we have the add item or add a transaction. Then we have get total. From the ring itself, it will get the total price of the transaction. We also have the necessary getters of this class. Next is the transaction item. The transaction item has the service, dentist, quantity, and price of the transaction. Then we have a getter for the total price, the commission rate of the dentist, then the getters. So we have now the main program, and we have the initial attributes of that contain the dentist clients transactions and such. In the main program, we have initialize sample dentist. For demonstration, I will be utilizing some sample dentists for the program. We have to initialize the scanner. Then after that, we have a while loop that will continue to loop until the user wishes to exit. Inside this while loop, we have the main menu of the program, the options, then we will ask for a choice. Then inside that, we have a switch case that handles the chosen program to the user. If the user wishes to add dentist, we will call a method that will add the dentist. If the user wishes to add a dentist, it will go into this method. In this add dentist method, we will ask for the user to enter the dentist name, the address, the contact number, and commission rate in double. After we ask for that user for the details of the dentist, we will then create a new dentist object. Then after we add a dentist object, we will ask for the services that dentist offers. So we have to add the choice of the service in index form. Then it will have a user handling to check if there will be errors. So if the service choice is inside the length of the service, then it will just continue. However, there is an error, or when the service choice is less than 1 or over the limit of that services, it will become invalid choice. Then it will retry and ask for another user input. After we confirm that the user choice is a valid choice, we will add that service to the dentist. After we completed adding the description of the dentist and its services, it will then add that dentist to the dentist list. Next case is add client. Similarly to the add dentist, the add client will ask for the description of the client, the name, the address, then the contact number. Then it will add that to the client class, then the client list. So if the user picks to create a transaction, it will go into this method. First, it will check if the client's list is empty or if the dentist list is empty. Since this operation needs to have at least one client or at least one dentist. If that's the case, it will just return to the main program and ask for a user input again. The process needs to select the clients first, so it will print a list of clients using for loop. So it will temporarily create a client object with based on the current iterator. Then prints its details like the name and the client ID. After it prints the list of clients, it will now ask the user to pick what client will be involved in the transaction. Then we have a user handling error to maintain and validate the user choice so that it will not be index out of bounds error. After we validate the user choice, we will pass it to the client, then the client choice. After that, we are presented with a while loop that will only break if the user selects to exit the services. Inside the while loop is a list of available services. To have that, we have another for loop that prints the services and per to transaction. After each services, there is an added extra selection in which if the user picks this, then the whole loop will break or exits. So after we print the services, it will ask for a user choice and another user handling before we proceed to the next transaction. So after the user selects a service, it will go into this if condition wherein if the service that the user chooses falls between a per to transaction or per to services, it will ask for a quantity. This is done by the array method that I explained earlier, which is this is per to Boolean array. So after the user entered the quantity of the service, it will create an array list of available dentists. So for each available dentist, it will iterate to the list. Then inside of that, it will check if that dentist is able to do that service. We can do that by accessing the can perform method of the dentist class. Then if that returns true, it will add that dentist to the available dentist list. If some case that the available dentist is empty, or when there is no available dentist to perform that service, it will continue to the selection of services saying that no dentist is available for this service. If there are at least one dentist that is available, it will continue to the program. After checking if there are available dentists, it will list all of the dentists that is available that can perform the selected service. So after that, we ask for the user for the choice from the available dentist that can perform. Then another user handling. After selecting all transaction, we'll add that to the transaction item, then add that item to the transaction. Then after that, there will be a system feedback that when the transaction is added, it will create a receipt or transaction completed, the transaction ID, then the price of that transaction. Otherwise, if the transaction is cancelled, it will print transaction cancelled and no services added. Next case, view dentist. So basically, this method will provide a list of dentists that are registered in the program. First, we will check if the dentist list is empty. If it's empty, it will return to the main menu, then print an error log saying no dentist registered yet. If there is at least one dentist, it will continue to the program and then list the dentist using for each loop, which means for each dentist that is present, it will print its name, the employee ID, the contact, the commission rate, and the services that that dentist offers. Next case is the view client. Similar to the view dentist, first it will check if the client's list is empty or not. If it's empty, it will return to the main menu and print an error log saying no clients registered yet. Otherwise, it will print the list of clients that are registered in the system. The same for each loop. Again, we will iterate through the clients of the list, then prints its client ID, the name, the address, and the contact. Next, we have the view transactions. In this transaction method, similar to the other two methods, it will check first if the transactions list is empty or not. If not, it will list all of the transactions using for each. For each transaction, it will print the transaction ID, the details of the client, and the services that the client availed. For using another for each loop for the transaction item. So it will print the services, the commission, the name of the dentist that performed the services, the total prices, and the commission of the dentist. Then it will print the total price of the services available. Next case is the exit case. If the user picks this case, it will prompt a goodbye message. Then it will close the scanner, then return or exits the while loop. Then there is a case, a default case wherein it will accept any other choice, especially if the user inputs an invalid choice. For example, 0 or any number greater than 7.